When a woman begins thinking about someone nonstop, her behavior stops being random. It becomes patterned, predictable, and deeply psychological. She might not verbalize it. She might not even fully understand it herself, but her subconscious will start revealing everything she is trying to hide. Because the female mind doesn't express interest through direct declarations, she expresses it through energy, observation, and subtle emotional cues. The first sign is consistency. The female brain attaches through repetition, not impulse. When a certain presence brings emotional safety, her mind revisits it again and again. So she becomes consistent, not in loud ways, but in quiet, stable patterns. She initiates small conversations, remembers small details, or simply makes sure she doesn't disappear. This consistency is not accidental. It is an emotional anchor forming internally. Another clear sign is mirroring, something most people underestimate. When she begins unintentionally mirroring tone, habits, or wording, it means her brain is aligning emotionally. Humans only mirror what they are subconsciously connected to. This is the mind's natural way of saying, I feel safe here, I feel understood here, and once the mind begins mirroring, the emotional connection is already in motion. Then comes the sensitivity to your actions. When she thinks about you often, even your smallest gestures hold meaning. She will notice changes in your tone, delays in responses, or shifts in your energy. This sensitivity is not weakness, it is awareness. It comes from emotional investment. The more value she places on the connection, the more attuned she becomes to anything that could affect it. A powerful sign is emotional recall. If she brings up things from the past, conversations, compliments, or moments you've shared, it means those memories stayed with her. Women do not revisit moments that meant nothing. Emotional recall is a psychological indicator that the mind has attached significance, and once something holds significance, it becomes part of her inner world. Sometimes she may even show avoidance mixed with curiosity. This is where people get confused. She may pull back not because she doesn't care, but because she cares too much. When emotions become intense, the female brain enters a conflict. I want closeness, but I also want control. I want connection, but I don't want vulnerability. So she watches from a distance while pretending she isn't watching. This conflict is one of the strongest signs that someone is on her mind constantly. And finally, subtle testing. Women test not to manipulate, but to understand emotional safety. When she thinks about someone nonstop, she tests to measure sincerity, consistency, and the stability of the connection. These tests reveal that she is emotionally invested enough to want clarity. At the end of the day, female psychology is not complicated once you understand its foundations. Emotional safety, consistent energy, and value-based connection. When she thinks about you non-stop, it's not the dramatic gestures that reveal it. It's the small, layered, psychological patterns that speak louder than words. Recognizing these signs is not about control. It's about understanding human behavior with maturity. Because real connection begins the moment you stop guessing emotions and start understanding them. When a woman begins thinking about someone nonstop, one of the most revealing signs is consistency in her behavior. Consistency in this context is not about obvious or loud actions, but subtle patterns that indicate her subconscious mind is preoccupied. Human psychology, particularly female psychology, works on emotional attachment rather than logic alone. The female brain is wired to notice patterns, evaluate stability, and attach value to interactions that are predictable and emotionally safe. When she begins thinking about someone repeatedly, her actions start aligning unconsciously with her emotional state, and consistency becomes an external manifestation of that internal attachment. It is through these small, repeated behaviors that her mind signals she is emotionally invested, even if she is not verbally expressing it. Consistency appears in several ways, often subtle yet unmistakable to an attentive observer. For example, she may initiate communication frequently but in ways that are non-intrusive, like sending a short message, a smile, or reacting to something you say online or in person. She remembers the details of conversations, showing that her mind is replaying your interactions. Human memory and attention are selective. The brain retains information that carries emotional weight. Therefore, remembering seemingly trivial details is a psychological clue of preoccupation. It indicates that she values the interaction enough for her mind to attach itself to it, replaying those moments internally, analyzing them, and forming a sense of connection. Another layer of this consistency is timing and availability. If she consistently checks in, replies within a certain time frame, or shows up during particular situations, it reveals that her thoughts are guided by an underlying emotional focus. Emotional investment manifests in these patterns because the female mind subconsciously seeks reassurance and connection. When someone occupies her thoughts constantly, she subconsciously seeks moments to maintain that link, and her actions, though casual, demonstrate effort and attention without the need for verbal confirmation. This is not manipulation, it is an internal drive that the brain executes automatically when emotional significance is attached. Consistency also reflects predictable emotional energy. Women tend to regulate their emotional output to maintain control over their attachments. When she is thinking about someone nonstop, she begins to mirror emotions subtly, showing warmth, concern, or interest in consistent ways. For example, she may respond with enthusiasm to topics she knows matter to the other person, or she may mirror gestures or speech patterns unconsciously. These behaviors may appear minor, but their repetitiveness is key. Human brains are drawn to patterns, and when she consistently aligns her responses, it indicates her mind has established a kind of emotional rhythm with the person she is preoccupied with. It is essential to note that this consistency is rarely about being overly available or intrusive. Women rarely demonstrate emotional attachment in ways that compromise their sense of self or independence. Instead, consistency manifests in small, measured doses. She may reach out, not overwhelm, notice details without making them the center of attention, or maintain presence without seeking to control. These measured, repeated actions indicate that her mind has chosen to focus on someone repeatedly, creating a pattern of behavior that signals emotional attachment. From a psychological perspective, this consistent behavior is rooted in the brain's need for predictability and stability. Emotional connections form most strongly when the mind perceives repeated, safe, and meaningful interactions. By behaving consistently, she creates internal and external structures that reinforce her attachment. It is her mind's way of saying that the connection matters and that she is mentally prioritizing it. This is why consistency is often one of the earliest, yet most subtle signs that someone is emotionally invested. Observing consistency requires attention to nuance. It is not about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. A woman may not say outright that she is thinking about someone nonstop, but her behavior tells the story. Does she remember your preferences, respond in predictable ways, or demonstrate interest in topics important to you? Does she create patterns of communication that show attentiveness without pressure? These small, consistent behaviors, repeated over time, are far more indicative of emotional investment than words alone. Consistency also reveals emotional reliability. When someone thinks about another person constantly, she seeks stability in the connection. Her consistent behavior acts as a reassurance system, both for herself and the other person. Her mind evaluates whether the relationship feels safe and whether the connection is mutual. If she maintains her patterns, even subtly, it indicates that she is emotionally invested enough to sustain attention over time, which is a hallmark of genuine interest. Furthermore, consistent behavior fosters subconscious attachment on both sides. When someone behaves consistently, it signals dependability, reliability, and emotional investment. This encourages the brain of the other person to also attach emotionally, creating a feedback loop where repeated positive interactions strengthen the emotional bond. Therefore, when a woman thinks about someone nonstop, her consistency is both a reflection of internal attachment and a mechanism to subtly reinforce the connection externally. Finally, it is important to distinguish between superficial attention and true consistent behavior. Superficial attention is sporadic, inconsistent, or reactive. It might appear similar on the surface, but lacks the psychological depth of repeated, stable patterns over time. True emotional investment is persistent, observable through repeated actions that align with underlying feelings. Consistency, in this sense, is the hallmark of the female mind processing and prioritizing someone she truly values. In conclusion, consistency in behavior is one of the most reliable indicators that a woman is thinking about someone nonstop. It manifests through repeated communication, attentive observation, subtle mirroring, and predictable emotional energy. It is not loud or overbearing. It is quiet, deliberate, and deeply rooted in psychological attachment. By observing these patterns, one can understand not just that she is thinking about someone, but the intensity and significance of her emotional investment. Consistency is the language of the subconscious, and when interpreted correctly, it reveals the depth of attention, care, and connection the female mind has established. When a woman begins thinking about someone nonstop, one of the most revealing signs is unintentional mirroring. Mirroring is a psychological phenomenon that occurs naturally when humans are emotionally connected or mentally preoccupied with someone. Unlike conscious imitation, which is deliberate and often strategic, unintentional mirroring is subtle and unconscious. It occurs when her mind is continuously processing your behaviors, speech patterns, gestures, or even moods. The female brain is highly attuned to emotional signals, and when she is preoccupied with someone, her subconscious begins to align itself with that person's behavior as a reflection of her mental focus. This alignment is not accidental. It is an instinctive way for her mind to create familiarity, build rapport, and maintain an emotional connection. Mirroring appears in many forms. It may start with speech patterns. If you use certain phrases, tones, or expressions, she might unconsciously begin to use them as well. These small verbal cues are signs that her mind is focused on you to the point of adopting parts of your behavior without deliberate intent. Similarly, gestures and body language can be mirrored. If you lean in while speaking, she might mirror that movement. If you smile, she smiles back in a similar pattern. Sometimes even before fully processing why, these micro behaviors reveal that her attention is so consistently on you that her brain is echoing your actions, creating a subtle rhythm of connection. Mirroring also extends to emotional states. When someone thinks about another person constantly, their emotional responses often begin to match the moods and feelings of that individual. If you are calm and relaxed, she might unconsciously reflect that serenity. If you are excited or passionate, she may exhibit elevated energy in response. This is not mere coincidence. It is the brain's way of establishing synchronization. Emotional mirroring is particularly strong in women because of the heightened ability to detect nuances in social cues. The female mind instinctively seeks alignment with emotionally significant people, which explains why unintentional mirroring often occurs without conscious awareness. The reason unintentional mirroring is such a reliable sign of mental preoccupation lies in the brain's architecture. The human brain contains mirror neurons, which fire both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else performing that same action. These neurons are responsible for empathy, learning, and social connection. When a woman's mind is preoccupied with someone, these neurons activate more frequently in response to that person's behavior, creating unconscious mimicry. The stronger her mental focus and emotional attachment, the more pronounced the mirroring becomes. It is a biological reflection of psychological investment, a natural way for her mind to maintain proximity, even when physical or verbal interaction is limited. Another layer of mirroring is seen in timing and energy. She may begin to echo not only words or gestures, but also the rhythm and flow of interactions. For instance, if you have a particular way of pacing conversations, pausing, or emphasizing points, she might subtly adapt to match this rhythm. Her laughter, her pauses, her reactions may unconsciously sync with yours. These patterns, though minute, are powerful indicators that your presence occupies her thoughts. It demonstrates that her brain is engaged at a deeper level, constantly analyzing and reflecting your behavior to maintain a sense of connection and familiarity. Unintentional mirroring also extends to lifestyle choices and preferences in minor, almost invisible ways. She may adopt your interests, casually reference topics you favor, or begin to align her habits with yours. This is not imitation in a conscious or superficial sense. It is a subtle reflection of her mental focus. The mind unconsciously aligns with what it values. And when someone occupies her thoughts constantly, her subconscious finds ways to synchronize with that person to create internal coherence and emotional alignment. Importantly, this type of mirroring differs from deliberate flattery or attention-seeking behavior. When someone is consciously trying to impress, the behavior can feel forced, inconsistent, or exaggerated. Unintentional mirroring, by contrast, is smooth, natural, and often unnoticed even by herself. It is a silent signal that her attention is directed inwardly toward the person she thinks about nonstop. It reveals genuine mental and emotional investment because it is automatic and cannot be faked over long periods. Mirroring also serves a functional purpose in relationships and social bonding. It fosters subconscious familiarity, trust, and empathy. By aligning herself with your behaviors, she creates a psychological environment where emotional connection can grow. This is why when a woman is mentally preoccupied with someone, she may seem to adapt effortlessly to that person's presence without even realizing she is doing it. Her mind is creating compatibility on a subconscious level, strengthening the emotional link she is forming internally. Observing unintentional mirroring requires attention to subtle patterns over time. It is not about one or two coincidental actions, but repeated alignment across verbal cues, gestures, energy levels, and emotional responses. When these patterns consistently appear, they reveal that her thoughts and attention are focused on the person she is preoccupied with. It is a sign that she is mentally revisiting interactions, replaying conversations, and unconsciously internalizing behaviors to create emotional resonance. Unintentional mirroring also indicates mental prioritization. The female mind is selective about what it invests cognitive and emotional energy into. For her brain to engage in this automatic reflection, the person must hold significance. This is why mirroring is one of the strongest subconscious signals of ongoing mental preoccupation. It is not superficial. It reflects attention, value, and emotional alignment. Finally, unintentional mirroring highlights a deeper truth about human connection. Attention is one of the most powerful indicators of attachment. When someone occupies your thoughts, it is natural for your mind to seek alignment with that person's behavior and energy. In women, this manifests as unintentional mirroring, a subtle yet undeniable psychological signature of mental preoccupation. Recognizing it requires patience, observation, and understanding of the nuanced ways the mind reflects interest. By noticing these patterns, it becomes clear not only that she is thinking about someone nonstop, but also that her subconscious mind is actively creating emotional resonance, signaling investment in a connection that is both mental and emotional.